Hi, I'm Spider-Man, and this is my TinyHawk. Hi, I'm David Hutnick, also known as Rogue Rooster, and today I'm going to do an update on the TinyHawk. Welcome back, everybody. Today I'm going to go over my updates on the TinyHawk. I'll show you guys how I changed out this frame and put the TBS Unify Nano Pro in. Also how I took out the stock VTX so you can still put it back in, which I will do because I like to see the differences between the flight time. Feels a little shorter with the Unify Pro, but the distance and the clarity is a lot better, so it's a trade-off like always. I'll go over my pids, my rates, and those updates from the last one have changed. So when you guys are looking at this stuff, I've gone nice and slow from everything from my throttle curve to even my dump file. So that way you guys can see it all. And if you decide to take any of these numbers and apply it to your guys' application or your drone, it'll make it nice and easy. Other than that, let's get started. All right, everybody, we're going to get started. With beta flight, I'm going to go over all this stuff fairly fast. It is sped up, but you guys can pause it with your media player in YouTube and look at the numbers. I'm going to just kind of go over this fairly quick. This is all the updates for my beta flight setup. Supports tabs, those should be all normal. Next thing is configurations, D-Shot, 8 motor idle. You should have it on 8K, 180 ARM. I have anti-gravity and dynamic filter set. As you can see, I use the D-Shot beacon configuration for my beeper because I don't have one installed. There's no reason. That's added weight. I use crash over flip. Now we are on the battery tab. Now we are on PID tuning. And these are my stock settings. Rate profile 1 is for angle mode. Rate profile 2 is for acro. And rate profile 3, most people use horizon. I have been playing around with the FB camera angle mode, so it's like acro with a little bit of an adjustment for your camera angle. You can learn about that if you want to, but these are my settings. Most people are going to fly angle or acro, which is generally what I fly. So rate profile 1 is for angle mode, and as you can see, I have certain settings set up throughout this to kind of tailor for one for angle, and within beta flight from my previous video, if you have it set up on a switch to change between angle mode and rate mode, you will also change your rate profile. So you can go back through here and adjust for it. But rate profile 1 is for angle mode. Rate profile 2 is for acro. Rate profile 3 would be either horizon, or I use the FPV angle camera adjustment thing. So the next thing we're going to go into is, you can see, these are my modes. I have angle, as I said first, then acro. And as we scroll down, you'll see that I use the FPV angle mix. FPV angle mix. All right, now on to OSD. This is what my OSD looks like and how I set it up. These are the things I have on it. Again, go back, pause any of these moments so you guys can see it. It's easier this way. Black box, no logging. All right, CLI dump time. As you can see, I have 3.5.3 version of Betaflight on mine, so this is for that. I haven't updated to the 3.5.6 yet. And we're going to scroll through the dump file. Scrolling through. Gonna scroll through the dump file. And as I'm going through here again, pause it at any time. So if you want to compare your dump file with this one, by all means. I will see if I can get the dump file pasted under the bottom of this video somehow for you guys, so that way you guys can just copy and paste this into yours if you'd like. Still scrolling. Okay, next is the remote. Here in the remote, I'm going to go over this, and again, pause this so you can go back, but these are the numbers for the throttle curve, starting with the negative 100, negative 81, negative 63, negative 45, negative 29, negative 11, 4, 19, 33, 47, 59, 72, 83, 92, 97, 99, and 100. You guys can adjust those slightly up and down from your scale or what you like, but this is what I have it on. Make sure it's on standard, 17 points, and the smooth is on. Make sure it's in your mixer as well as on your throttle, and it should be throttle in the mixer and throttle on its regular input outputs, basically. Set the curves to custom, curve 1. Alright, TBS Unify Pro Nano. You can pause it so you guys have the scale, but that was the picture setup. So this is my old frame here, and as you can see, I got my pink frame. And this video is sped up because basically it took me a little bit to kind of get all this together. But as you can see in this video now, I'm going to pop the motors and slowly start taking this all apart. And this is the procedure in which I do it. You guys can change your mind, or not change your mind, but do it differently however you like. So I pop all the motors out first. Or at least all the contacts for the motors. I leave the motors in and pull all the innards out and replace the shelf first. Then that way you can keep your motors the exact same way and make sure that you have your board pointing the same way. There is an arrow on it so you know which way is pointing forward, but you know, match everything up on your table so when you take it apart it's very easy. As you can see here, I'm taking the bottom plate off at this point now. And it's just 4 screws. You unscrew those till you get them loose enough. Don't lose them because they are tiny and easy to lose. So I recommend using a cup or something, but just don't lose them. Have some workspace. This is a Cad X Camera. I tried putting it in originally to the TinyHawk before I upgraded my motors. Maybe it will work better now, but it's almost 1.5 grams to 2.5 grams or something of weight, so it's too much. As you can see here, I'm showing you guys right now is the thicker cable wires. You can buy these plugs. They're the PH2 plugs, and you can buy them on Amazon. They're a solid pin, and I recommend them. It allows the current from the battery to get into your board better. And also the wire gauge is a lot thicker. These are 18 gauge wires with that solid pin. I made these connectors. 18 might be a little excessive, but I have way less sag. I can push my battery down way below. So I recommend upgrading these you know, plugs for your guys' TinyHawks. Get some little bit thicker wire and buy a pack of these PH plugs. They come also with the battery ends with wires already. So if you have any of these style batteries and you break this somehow, you can always turn it into something similar like this. So that way you can use it. So here I'm pulling the board out at this point. Pulled the wires out, the VTX, and I'm going to get the camera out. A trick is to squeeze the top of the frame, and that'll allow, when you're putting pressure, to pop the top half out. Once you're getting enough pressure on the top part to squeeze, yeah, as you can see, I'm trying to get everything out of the way here. I had a piece of glue in there just to keep it from moving, but if you squeeze the top, it'll pop that part out. Once you get the top half out, you can just kind of wiggle it out, and the rest of it will kind of come out of the frame. It sometimes can be a kind of a bitch. Sometimes it can be kind of a pain. So once you get that top pulled out, and you can see it's all coming out now. I think I'm looking at the wires and contacts, making sure everything looks good. So at this point, I'm pulling everything out. So there's the board. There's the old VTX still on there and the contacts. There are 4 pins. If you look real close, there are 2 and 2, and they're soldered solid pins right through it. So pretty simple to get it out. Which basically a hot iron and some tweezers. Recommend some kind of springed tweezers that you can put in there and let the pressure of that push it apart while you're heating the contacts, and I'll show you that here in just a second. So right now I'm over observing, figuring out which one is the positive, negative, and all that, and it's all written on the board, so it should be very easy to see. If you have a little microfine glass like one of these, or even one of these helping hands, you can get in there and see there's a 3.3 volt, a ground, a video out, and a TX for your smart audio. Alright, so now we got this all separate. You can see I'm going to take this frame here and take all the motors out from this one and apply it into the pink one. 3 screws per motor. Just swap them over exactly the same so you don't have to mess anything in BL Heli to change the motor rotation, because if you bought a new board in BL Heli, they haven't messed with it, so all your motors will spin the same direction. Go into BL Heli or learn about BL Heli if you don't know anything about it, so that way you can activate it. You plug your drone in, you start up a BL Heli, and you can go in and figure out which motors are spinning the wrong way and reverse the rotation. So here I've gotten one motor into the frame now, and I'm just going to kind of get the rest of these motors all put in there. And at this point here, looks like I'm about to take the VTX out of the board. So as you can see, I'm applying a little bit of flux onto each contact. If you add flux to it, it'll help add some flux back into it to allow it to flow real smooth and easy. Makes it a lot easier to pull this off. I'm using some TBS solder that I got from a buddy, and it works really well. I highly recommend the TBS solder, which is a 63/37. It says 1.8 flux on it and 1 millimeter diameter. As you can see here, I'm pulling apart the board and using those tweezers as a way to pry it. And then you just kind of keep working it, and it'll come off of there. Just apply a little bit of heat at a time. I think I'm working about 300 degrees on my soldering iron. Just get enough, and bam, there we go. And now you have that pried off. Pretty straightforward and simple. As you can see, it's pretty clean. I leave the contacts still the way they are. Take this board off, so if you ever want to put it back on, it's really easy. Pretty straightforward. Okay, so next we're going to get this TBS Unify Nano Pro put in, which has 25 and 50 milliwatt power source. So again, I'm going to pre-tin my board. So I'm adding a little bit of solder or flux to it before I solder it. Now I'm going to go through and tin each into the contacts as well as the wires that I need to apply to it. There are 4 spots: positive, ground, negative, or positive, negative, signal, and a video signal, and your smart audio, which I believe is a TX. Alright, after pre-tinning, now I'm going to add the wires to each of my contacts. As you can see, there's a smart audio, a video out. Looks like the ground I'm adding next, and then positive after that. And just make sure you got some nice clean solder contacts. Sometimes you got to kind of work it. Alright, now we got the ground, and now we're going to get this positive put on real quick. Bam. Alright, and we're all soldered up, ready to go. Alright, next I'm going to cut the wires to length. I'm going to figure out how it's going to fit in there. So what I like to do is to tear the stupid little flag off, even though I wanted to keep it on there in the beginning, as you can tell. But tear it off, shove it through the hole. And what I figured out was it'll wedge right behind the camera, just right, to where you can see the contact comes out. And what I was worried about was the UFL antenna popping loose, but if you apply some glue to your UFL contact on your antenna, that will less likely to pop off. So what I do is I put a little dab of super glue, literally a dab, and let that dry and put a dab of hot glue over it. And I mean small, just enough to kind of keep binding to it, because you're going to heat shrink it and then stick it in there and put a little bit of glue to hold it in there. But if you wedge it just right, the CFL antenna will kind of fit in the back. So here at this point now, I'm just going to solder the ends, or tin the ends of my wires, and apply it back to the same contact spots. Alright, so now we're going to apply the wires to the contact ends. The first one I put in here is a video out. Then it's going to be the smart audio next. Then we're going to move over to the other side of the other two pins, which is negative. Looks like I'm going to put on negative first and then positive. Making sure that end is just short enough to make a contact, but not too long where it's going to touch something else. Put some heat shrink on first, it looks like. And get some heat shrink on there. Do. Okay. These are Infinity 450 milliamp batteries. They're graphene. I really like these batteries. They hold a lot better of a charge, I've noticed. But we'll see how long the graphenes last compared to the other batteries I have. But so far, my favorite. So slide your VTX antenna back up through there. Get your camera back inside the frame. And the trick I noticed was to put the antenna through, then the camera lens, then slide the VTX up behind it. Once you get the camera in there, the VTX has just enough space to kind of wedge in there. And what I do is I put a little dab of hot glue at one point behind the VTX to kind of help stick it in there between the camera and the board, so that way it won't move around in a crash or anything like that. So at this point I've gotten the camera in. Now I'm going to slide the VTX in there behind it. And making sure that everything fits in there. Make sure your wires are all kind of, you know, when you push the board in, it's not going to push on anything or push anything away. So you get the VTX up in there. And I'm here now going to put a little dab of hot glue on. You can see I put just a little, but sometimes I wasn't waiting long enough, so you heat it again. And then shove it in there real quick. And it's glued. Bam. Okay, now it's time to put the board back in. So we'll just shove the board in. Make sure your grommets are all lined up for your soft mount. And the reason my wire is so long is so not just can I use these ones, but I can also use these batteries that don't have the extension wire. So I have a little bit of a longer wire, but I don't run it out the normal spot on the TinyHawk. I run it out the side because I found that was a little more handy. This here is the color changing light from TinyWhoop. And if you guys have ever bought any of the LEDs from them, they're pretty simple. They just go on a positive and negative contact. Here I just remembered that I needed to plug in the motors again, so we're going back through, plug the motors all back in. Good to go there. Okay, now I think it's time to put the bottom on. Everything looks pretty good. We're going to LED, positive, negative, direct connection. And I do not have this on my TinyHawk as of now since I've made this video because I actually broke one of the wires when installing this because I was a little manhandling it here. But I've also had this for a while. I just keep reusing it for different drones. But this is how you put one in, or at least how I like to put one in. And then I put a dab of hot glue, which I know adds a little weight, but it's fractions. But that keeps the LED from moving, from coming out, and it works really well. As you can tell in this now, I don't have it in there. Okay, I'm putting the bottom plate back on. And getting the screws put in. Make sure everything fits nice and snug and tight. Bend the antenna back. And there you go. Now you have your props set up. Make sure you got them all lined up. And make sure that the cross members are exactly perfect. It should line up with those crosses exactly and almost kind of click in. If you don't, I swear you can't get them off almost. They're very difficult to pop off, and my trick is to put my fingers like this through it and kind of twist it until it pops off against the resistance, but you know, everybody has a different technique. So anyways, we'll get all these props put on here real quick. Just make sure they're all lined up nice and tight. Bam. All right, and that's about it, everybody. Once you got that in there and your props on, put your battery and go fly. And enjoy. I hope you guys like watching any of my videos. Hit the thumbs up and the like if you guys enjoyed it. Subscribe and leave a comment below if you guys have any questions. or if you'd like to see some other videos, just be patient. I got a new computer, so I'm hoping to release a lot more videos here coming soon. Thanks, everybody, and have a good one.
Peace out.